Hello everybody and welcome to the third Machine Learning with Python Programming tutorial video series. In the last video we showed really how simple machine learning actually is. So the real machine learning aspect is actually quite simple, especially because you'll most likely never need to write your own custom machine learning algorithm. So on my channel we've actually written two, right? We did an image recognition and we also did a pattern recognition. Actually both of those were pattern recognition, but both of those were machine learning tutorials, but both of them were highly inefficient. And this is why you will probably never actually write your own algorithm besides just to do it for fun or something. But in actual production, you'll likely never need to write your own. There's already just tons of these algorithms out there for you to choose from. So like I was saying before, is that you're going to find that the actual machine learning part is really simple. The hard part is getting the data, organizing it, labeling it, and maybe even choosing the machine learning algorithm to use. Okay, so the first thing I want to go ahead and show you guys is this diagram from Scikit Learn. And this kind of helps. It's not necessarily the most accurate, but it's a very good start as far as what you should choose. So you start here and you decide, do I have more or less than 50 samples? If you have less, get more data. You have more than 50, great. Pick a category. Do we need to do this stuff? Do we have labeled data? Yes. Less than 100K samples, then we do linear SVC. More than 100K samples, we would go to SGD classifier and so on. So for us, we're actually going to wind up using the SGD classifier, and here's why. We have more than 50 samples. We do want to predict a category. We will have labeled data, and we will have more than 100,000 samples. Most likely. We may actually not have more than 100,000 samples. It'll be close, but we may actually have less, and so we might use linear SVC. But we'll be using one of these two. Anyway, so that's that. The other thing I want to show you guys now is the hardships of actually getting the data. So our premise or our question here is we're going to analyze stock company, so publicly traded company fundamentals. So if you are a publicly traded company, you have to report just gobs of data on your company. So the question is, can we use machine learning to analyze all of these kind of, it's fundamental data, but it's at the outset there's a lot of actually technical data on company fundamentals. So we're going to analyze that kind of technical data. And those are just in pure numbers, so it's really simple for us to kind of convert that to machine learning language. But the problem here is, the kind of major challenges, right? So the first major challenge with machine learning is organizing the data to kind of suit machine learning. The next major challenge is basically labeling your data for so for us, we're going to have to take all of these companies and we're going to have to label that company at every step of the way, whether it is a buy or a sell, because we're going to be using this for investing. So we label it as a buy or a sell. And then the third major challenge, quite possibly the hardest challenge of all of these, is actually just getting the data. So where are we going to get all of this fundamental data? So sometimes the data is available, but it's not free. And when it's not free, it's usually very expensive. Also, sometimes data is totally free and available, but acquiring it is very difficult, especially when it's in bulk. So there's a couple of issues here. One, we can take, for example, the late Aaron Swartz for an example there, where he was accessing and acquiring publicly available data, but he was doing it in a way that was against the law, and he ended up getting federally prosecuted for it. Nowadays, there have been some changes to the CFAA, so that's the Computer Fraud and something else Act, so that's changed a little bit, but you can still get in a lot of trouble. So one of the ways that you can kind of get in trouble is a lot of data acquisition tasks resemble and basically do the exact same thing as a denial of service attack. So if you're taking data at a rate that is really high, you can be accused of abusing a server and actually harming the server, even if your intention wasn't to do a DDoS attack, it's still harmful to that server, right? Just like a DDoS attack is harmful. So you have to kind of take that into consideration. And so sometimes you can contact the company, whoever you're trying to parse data from. You can contact them and tell them, hey, I want to acquire this data. Is there any easy way for me to acquire it? And a lot of times you might find that the owner of that website is very accommodating and may even just give you a dump straight from the database. So you can kind of think of that as your first example. So anyways, let's talk about our example though. We're going to be doing stock fundamentals. So where do we acquire stock fundamentals? Well, the most official source of stock fundamentals is the SEC website. Okay, so we go to this SEC website. So just keep in mind, what is one website that you definitely don't want to give the impression that you're DDoSing? The SEC website. You don't want them bringing charges against you. So anyway, keep that in mind. That's why we're not, in this video, we're definitely not going to do that. We may eventually cover how you might parse data, but I want to be pretty careful as far as showing people how to, I don't want it to be construed that I'm showing people how to be harmful to the SEC website. Anyway, moving on. To get really quality data from sec.gov, you just go to sec.gov, then you go here to company filings, and then you can search a company name or just come over here. This is way easier, and you can do a fast search. So for example, we can fast search AAPL for Apple. And then here you get just a gobs of information. And a lot of this stuff, I don't even know what all of these forms are, but as you can imagine, it's just a ton of silly forms. And the ones that we're mostly interested in are the 10K and the 10Q. 10K will be your annual report, and then the 10Q is your quarterly report. So for example, we can look at the quarterly report. So we'll just click on documents here. And here is your 10K, and then you can basically, here's your 10Q, and then here's your 10Q. We can view the document here, and here's our lovely 10Q document. So we've got some nice tables here, net sales. So this is a great table. We've got some more, looks like our balance sheet here. Nice. We've got some more numbers, so tons of figures, a lot of paragraph content here. So this would be especially useful. It would be really cool because, like, what a lot of fund managers do is they basically have to read all of this and they make judgments based on all of this information. There's a lot of really good stuff here. A lot of times they'll also have like custom graphs and stuff in here. I don't see one in this 10Q. Let's check their 10K real quick. Ooh, they've even got their nice little logo here. Fancy, fancy. I'm hoping for a graph, but I guess they're not going to show us a graph. Anyway, sometimes there's graphs, and obviously there's a lot. Oh wait, there's a graph. Nice. So here we go. Company stock performance, and we've got the Apple stock compared to S&P 500, S&P Information Technology, and the Dow Jones. Obviously, they're showing that, hey, look at us, we have dominated. So there's that, and then obviously just a whole bunch of just general information. It's basically public company is required to report everything that they would report to, say, their shareholders if they were a private company. They have to report all of this information. So the sec.gov website's a great way to get it, and that's Edgar. But due to my fears of showing people how to parse the SEC website, the other thing, if someone happens to know, since maybe a lot of people will watch the video, what are the terms to parsing sec.gov? I see no, I come down here, I'm looking for terms, right? There's privacy, that's not what we want. Inspector General, none of this stuff is terms of service. Where are the terms of service for this website? Because that's generally what you run into when you're parsing a website, is you're violating the terms and conditions or terms of service, and they either have the right to just deny you access, or they even further, if you're causing them harm, have the right to shut you down. And so, to seek legal ramifications. And I just don't want to have the sec.gov or SEC seeking legal ramifications against me. But anyway, yeah, I just wonder what are the terms to parsing the sec.gov website? If anybody knows, please let me know. Anyway, so we move on to the next source. So the sec.gov website is great for even more data. So the sec.gov is going to have, basically it's the most official source, right? So you're going to have the most accurate information from them, the most timely information. So the sec.gov website is where you're going to get all the information first. The other websites, it goes out to them. They might be very fast, they might be slow, but the first source to get it will be this website. And then also, like I was just showing you in those reports, there's a lot of information there, and you can do a lot of text analysis on that information as well. So maybe eventually we'll get to something like that, but for now, we'll just stick here. So we're going to use Yahoo Finance, a company that scares me a little less. So for example, we can look up, say, Apple again. So here's the Apple ticker. Again, this is finance.yahoo.com. Then we go to the Yahoo ticker. We can see the markets are just kind of having quite the sell-off due to oil prices. I would say that's a just simply a correlation, not causation. Anyway, so we come down here and we see things like key statistics. So we can click on that. I'm just doing control click, and there's a couple other things I'm looking for. Financials, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow. Okay, that'll do for now. So here's your statistics. We have all kinds of stuff. This is market cap, which is intraday. So market cap is based on wow, that's a live updating table too. That's neat. That's new. In fact, let me do view source here. What was that number? Let's see. Market cap. Intraday. Yeah, so cool. Yeah, so that updates there. So yeah, we can actually read that number pretty easily. That might change though over time. Anyways, so you have this market cap intraday, so you can see it's like live updating right now. That's based on amount of, what are the amount of shares that are out and what's the price, times that by shares, boom, you've got your market cap. And I believe Apple might even be like the #1 company now. Because for a while I think Chevron was beating them, but now I think Apple is the most valuable company like in the United States market. Anyways, a public company anyways. I bet there's a few that are bigger. Anyway, so we've got a bunch of statistics here. You've got, price to book. You've got things like down here we've got total debt, and then we've got total debt to equity. And debt to equity, I think we'll make that our very first, just as an example, first element. But, in general, if you were looking to maybe invest in this company, you'd probably look at a few things. You'd look at probably the trailing PE. I wouldn't really worry much about forward PE, so this is price to equity. And then you've got forward PE, which is like projected, and it just depends on who's doing the projecting here. So I don't really like the forward PE, but trailing PE is very useful. Generally, companies, PE is generally like 12, right? So people like to balance it around 12. And that's, price to equity. So it's like basically, Apple is being valued at 12 times its value. And so generally people use 12, but for like tech companies, the number is generally higher because tech companies don't really have a lot of equity necessarily, but they do have a lot of like intangible value that, that sometimes that value is priced in, but sometimes it's not. So, we might look at, price to equity. We might also look at price to book. So price to book is basically, this company is also worth 5 times more than basically if Apple was to sell everything on its books, how much less would this company be worth? So obviously we can see the price is almost 6 times its book value, which again is very common with tech stocks or anything that's in technology. But say if we're, I don't know, a mining corporation, so let's take Arch Coal, for example. Hopefully we'll see, let's check the Arch Coal's price to book even. So we'll come up here, we'll type in ACI for Arch Coal. We'll come down to key statistics here, and price to book, we can see, yeah, they're much closer to a more even or equal or equilibrium number because they don't have anything besides their book value, right? So if we were to sell Arch Coal, there's no kind of technology there. Arch Coal doesn't necessarily have dedicated customers in the sense that Apple has, this dedicated consumer group, that kind of stuff. So to an extent, we have to treat Arch Coal different than Apple. So as you'll see soon, we're going to have to treat, like, our first example will be debt to equity. And Apple, let's compare ACI to Apple. I don't know, Apple has a lot of money on the sheet, on their books, but anyway, total debt, $35.3 billion. And their debt to equity, 31 times their equity. And then we come down here and we check, Arch Coal, which is 266.55 debt to equity. Wow. Their profit margin is in the negatives. Yeah, this company's probably not going to do too well for now. It's been a while since I even looked at Arch Coal, but they look quite cheap, huh? And they're down quite a bit today. Anyway, enough on that. But as you can see, that when it comes to you've got what sector is the company in. So like for us, when we eventually sick a really intense machine learning machine learning task on this, we're going to have a lot of features. That's the word I've been looking for. Features. So the features of Apple. What market is it in? So is it a tech company or what? Then we're going to want to look at market cap, enterprise value, PE, basically all of these figures in this table, and the dividends, all of this. We want to look at all of this stuff, right? And we want to compare it. So part of why, first I'm just going to show you one feature, because that one feature will allow us to graph it. We can even graph two features. But if we have 15 features, we can't graph anymore. There's no way to like represent that data visually. So it kind of hurts learning to an extent. So first I want to show you with just a very basic feature count, and we're going to totally ignore market type, whether it's a tech stock, a bank stock, or whatever. But eventually we have to consider those things. Anyway, so that's that. That's where we're going to get our data. Now, I am going to spare you all the parsing task for this, and actually, well, the spidering task. I'm going to spare you bandwidth, basically. I did not want to, part of machine learning is acquiring data. So I want to still have you guys learn how to acquire data on your own, but I don't want you all to have to parse and spider Yahoo, finance.yahoo.com all at the same time or all together. I've already spidered yahoo.com. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys the files. And so let me bring up the files real quick. Okay, so here are the files. So for example, here's key stats. Okay, so I pulled this quite a while ago, but we're going to use this for now as our data sets. It's basically the entire S&P 500 of companies from, I think, about a year ago. Anyway, what I did was I parsed, actually, I'm not even going to say how I did this. Anyway, I got the data. Okay, and so basically the data is, these are dates. So this was 2003, January 20th, and then you've got hours, minutes, seconds. So there's all of this data here, and then for example, if we pull up, just say one of these, this is it. It's the entire HTML document. So all of the data is here. So like when you go to parse a website, you're basically viewing the source, and here is the source. And so the table and all that is there. So it'll be just like parsing Yahoo, except you won't have to suck up your own bandwidth, and you won't have to suck up Yahoo's bandwidth. So anyway, I'm going to make this data available to you guys. It's on pythonprogramming.net. So to get it, you will go to the following. I'll just paste it here. The link will be in the description as well. But pythonprogramming.net/downloads/intraquarter.zip. And that will be all of the data I was just showing you. So that's, here's Apple data. We've got key stats. We've got the quarterly earnings for all of these companies, basically from 2003 onward. It's about a decade's worth of fundamental data for the entire S&P 500. So it's quite a bit of data. And let me see how big. The zip is 250 megs. but I believe this, yeah, it's about a gigabyte worth of data. So hopefully that will save them a lot of space, and hopefully not too many people try to download this at the same time on my website. But anyway, so that's data. Download it. You'll have to extract it, and you'll basically have all of this. And again, it's all basically website data. So it's the exact same thing as going to finance.yahoo.com. It's just, you're just going to access their pages locally. And so the data we'll find is, so we'll still have to structure the data and all that. So we have all this data in tables, but we need to actually take that data and structure it and all of that. So anyway, before we get on to that, I do just want to close with, what a lot of people think that machine learning is useful for just like any task, right? It's not really useful for everything, and it's not learning in the sense that humans learn. So generally what we do is we use machine learning to aid ourselves. And machine learning is, I think, best used for, like I was saying before, a field where experience matters. So you can't just necessarily read a book and then know how to be a perfect investor in companies. You have to kind of spend a lot of time and kind of take experience to know what is a good PE ratio for a tech company, what is a good price to book value for a mining company, all this kind of stuff. Sometimes it just takes experience over time to figure it out. And people can't necessarily, it would be very difficult for a human to go through the entire S&P 500 stocks for the last decade, looking at what all these values were and how that company did compared to market. For a computer, it's very fast, right? And so, so probably one of the more simple examples or more iconic examples was playing checkers. What was it? Arthur Samuel. I might have that name wrong. Anyway, he's kind of like the father of machine learning almost, or at least his script is. And it's arguably one of the first machine learning scripts. And the idea with the script was to play checkers. So Arthur himself was not very good at checkers, but he was good enough to make a machine learning algorithm to analyze the game of checkers. And basically what it did is play a bunch of games of checkers and kind of memorize what happened. So what was a good move and what was a bad move, what was typically an advantageous move and what was not an advantageous move. And so basically the machine learning script went through and became it gained a lot of experience playing checkers, and it was able to gain a lot of experience in a very short amount of time. And then it was able to be very successful at the game of checkers. So in aspects like that, where we're trying to gain experience in a field, machine learning can be very useful. So that's kind of our idea here, is to gain experience in the field of investing to see if we can take that and then move forward on that. And so this comes with a lot of statistical fallacies, if you will. So we have a lot of those kinds of things to cover. But the hardest part is just getting the data, organizing it, and putting it kind of in a way for our machine learning algorithm to understand. So anyways, hopefully you guys are all up to this point. Make sure you're able to get that file downloaded. Depending on how the load goes, I might end up having to move it maybe somewhere else, but for now that it'll be on /download/intraquarter.zip. Keep in mind that's intra capital Q quarter. So a lot of times people say the file's not there anymore, but they're just not using camel casing. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the section below. Otherwise, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support and subscriptions. And until the next video.